So last week I introduced us to a way to visualize the difference between our ego and our soul. And it's as if our being is we can imagine it's a large property, and there are at least two buildings on that property. And one of the buildings is a large and airy house with many rooms. It's open and inviting, and it represents our soul. And the other is a much, much smaller structure on the property. And it's dark and cramped. When we're inside it, it feels confining. Sometimes it can even feel prison-like. Oftentimes, I think the way I most experience it is the sense that I've outgrown it. Sense that I'm ready to move on. And it represents our ego. So we have lived in the ego house most of our life. And while in many ways it works well enough, we get by, it's also highly limiting. And sometimes it can even be very painful. So there's lots of discussion about the ego and the soul in the book that I'm writing, and it will be available in its raw form very soon on the Mighty Network. But one very, very important thing to understand about the ego is that we have trusted it to be our conscience and guide instead of allowing our soul to do that work. We actually haven't known our soul well enough. We've lost track of it. So in the imagery, it's as if a lot of tall grass or trees, a whole forest has grown up between that small property, the ego, and the big house, the big, inviting, airy house. And we kind of forget that it even exists, that it can be our guide. So tonight we're looking at the soul essence of peace. And I don't have a lot to teach about this. One of the reasons we're doing this is to teach ourselves to find our way back to our soul and get to know the aspects of our soul ourselves, so that when we are there, we experience what our soul is like. But this just gives us a few, like, this is the room of peace where we can go visit and imagine we go in there to experience peace. When I was doing spiritual direction, it was so common if I were to ask people, what is it you really want? And they would feel into that and say, peace. And so we tend to think about a peace as being the busyness and the activity. We want things to stop, to slow down, to quiet, to still. We want our calendar to clear. We want there to stop being problems in the family or problems in the world. And so it's a lack of peace outside of ourselves and inside of ourselves. And our feeling of this inner turmoil is actually comes about, we feel it through the ego. So when we think of peace, we think of it in the definition. This is a definition from the dictionary that says free from disturbance or turmoil. We want to be free from that disturbance and turmoil. But what I've come to understand and know about the soul itself is that it is never in turmoil. It can feel sorrow, It can feel grief even when we experience the pain of the world, when we feel our own pain or the pain of our loved ones. But the soul is not rocked. It remains steady and stable no matter what is going on inwardly or outwardly. So we have this place in us that we do not need to create at all. We do not need to build this peace up inside of ourselves. We have this place that we can learn to find our way to, our soul, the big house. We learn that there's a trail through the woods that takes us there. So there's another definition for peace, which is to be free from agitation of mind or spirit. So mind is thoughts, spirit is emotions, and heart. So these are, two of the different aspects of ourselves. And there is this other place in all of us, the soul, that doesn't experience those things. It is the place that is free from agitation of mind or spirit. And when we experience the agitation from our soul, we can observe it, we can be with it without becoming entangled in it. So I recalled a lyric from a hymn that was written in the 1800s that I'm sure you all know. And it was written by a person who'd been through years of financial challenges and difficulties. And then, just as things seemed to be turning around, his 4 daughters were all lost in a shipwreck. All of his children. His wife survived, and on his way to meet his wife, he penned these words: "When peace like a river attendeth my way, or when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul." I always heard that song and imagined it was my work to make it well with my soul, to figure out how to fix myself so that when the sea billows rolled, I could feel that wellness in my soul. And now I'm turning that around. I go to my soul, I experience that peace. I learn to live from that place, to have that groundedness and stability of my soul. And when things happen, they happen. And I respond. I feel it. I never lose touch with my soul or with love. My soul is well. So as we do our practice tonight, we'll feel our way. This practice itself is the path through the woods from the ego, from our ego selves, which we do not judge. They are not a bad thing, and they are not our soul. So we use the practice as a pathway back to our soul. And when we get there, we'll attempt to feel what peace is like. So I invite us now each to drop into our own experience. And we're simply noticing what is here now. And as you notice an experience, no matter how slight or small, as you notice it, silently naming it to yourself. So, this is our first step into presence. Simply naming any experience that we can notice in a moment causes us to begin to become present, to be here. And then we turn to the body, part of ourself that deeply grounds us. And we begin by feeling our feet on the floor, so feeling the bottom of your foot, touching the bottom of your shoe, touching the floor beneath your shoe. From this initial grounding, we'll do a full body scan. So we notice the rest of our feet. And as we notice, we do so without judgment or expectation. We're simply allowing our body to be as it is. Noticing our ankles and our lower legs. Noticing our knees and our thighs. Noticing our hips. And our pelvis. Noticing our belly. Noticing our chest. Noticing our heart. Noticing our shoulders. And our upper arms. Noticing our lower arms and our hands. Noticing our low back. And then just slowly following the spine up the back, including the rib cage and the scapula, and the back of the neck, and noticing the scalp and the face. And then noticing your body as a whole, one whole physical being here now. And then noticing what it's like to be present, what your presence, your physical presence feels like right now. This is what it feels like to be present in and with your body. And remaining deeply grounded in your body, not taking your attention away. Begin to become aware of any inner experiences. Whatever wants to arise in your inner landscape. It might be images or colors or movement, emotions. Simply waiting without expectation or judgment as to what wants to arise in your being. You're now recognizing yourself as body, heart, spirit, mind, feeling yourself as one whole being present here now. And again, noting what it's like to be present in your being. It's like a signpost this way to my presence, to my being. You can return here. You know this place now. And so grounded in your presence, Again, including the experience of your feet on the floor. And this time, noticing the way your feet are being drawn into the floor. They're being held there. Simply noticing that. That your feet are being drawn into the earth by the force of gravity. And that because that is always at work, you're held. You don't fall over, you don't float off. You're grounded and held in this place now. You're not doing the work, it's being done for you. So when we recognize this, we can begin to relax. We can allow ourselves to be held. Gravity is a universal force. There's nowhere that it does not exist. That is also true of love, which is also holding us every moment of our existence. When we know love is holding us, we can begin to relax even further. From this holding space, held by our bodies, by our being, held by the earth and love, include an experience of noticing your breath. Watching the breath flow in and flow back out again. And allowing yourself to have beginner's mind when it comes to your breath. See if you can attend to it as though you've never noticed it before. Feel what your body does as it flows out in, and what it does as it flows back out again. Our bodies are in a constant cycle of receiving and releasing. And we allow the breath to be our teacher in how to let go. So when you feel yourself stabilized in your being, when you feel yourself held, just following that breath all the way out into a complete letting go. letting the breath carry you into a place of simple being. In love. So we've traveled the path from ego, much has fallen away as we've practiced tonight. Now it's as though we're on the doorstep of our soul. And we're looking for what peace might be like in our soul. Not making any assumptions of what peace is, what it should look like. Just trusting that it's available to us here now. Offering ourselves as open minds, open hearts, desiring to get to know the qualities of our soul. I invite you, as part of your practice this week, to revisit peace, to really imagine going to the house, knocking on the door, having the door opened by peace, getting to know that part of yourself and of soul, learning how to find your way back to that part of yourself. And then carrying it out into the world. Thank you so much for practicing with me and supporting my own practice. Love to you all.